We wanted to create not just a story, but a world. The headline was always a terrible thing in a beautiful place.
It was a really big-hearted, emotional show.
It felt like Broadchurch was a real place with real people.
The whole Broadchurch team is very much like a family.
I don't think we ever imagined it would become quite the part of the national consciousness that it did.
Broadchurch was an idea I had in a very different and nascent form quite a long time ago. Me and my family had moved down to Dorset in 2003, I think. It was walking along here, thinking about who'd done it, thinking about community and thinking about how I wanted to also work somewhere closer to where I lived because I kept having to go and work away from home a lot. And I thought, this is beautiful here. Somebody should shoot something here. And I really had that idiot light bulb moment of going, I know you could do that. Myself and Sam's storyline, the opening episode, in my house and in my back garden over cups of tea.
All he knew was that he wanted it to be a show about a community that has been rocked by a central event. How does a community deal with something that's traumatic collectively? How does that community respond?
There will be no hiding place for Danny's killer. We will catch whoever did this.
Broadchurch started for me. I got a phone call from Laura Mackey at ITV, and Laura said, I've had this amazing script from Chris Chibnall, who I had worked with many times before and loved. So Chris and I met, and the script was so special and had such essence of Chris's genius about it that immediately we said, yeah, let's develop this.
It grew from there. Jane came aboard and did her usual incisive, amazing script notes and asked all the questions and about what the show would be, and I rewrote it and we did a couple of drafts and we'd storylined kind of the whole series in broad shapes.
It had that sense of it being a film, so it was one story, it just happened to be 8 hours long, and so that was the genesis of it.
When we first saw the script, it was easily the best script we'd ever had. And when you get a script like that, you know that our job is going to be a little bit easier.
The show was accidentally written for Olivia Colman because she was the first name when we were just bouncing character ideas around. I said, oh, okay, it's Ellie Miller and somebody like Olivia Colman as a cop. I slightly then forgot, but also slightly in my subconscious, absolutely wrote it for Olivia. And then when Jane read the first draft, she said, you know who would be great for this would be Olivia Colman. And I said, oh, yeah, but actually I've written it for her without really realising it. And then we met with Olivia, and we both said, but she'll never do it because she's so in demand.
I just really wanted to play Ellie. Because even in that first episode, the whole gamut of emotions, that's a dream really, to play someone there's lots going on.
We went to Who It Should Be for Hardy, and David Tennant was the only person in our minds, really.
I was very intrigued by it. I wanted to know what happened next. I wanted to know more about these characters. I wanted to have a go at playing particularly Hardy. That's all you can ever hope for from reading script for the first time.
Jodie Whittaker was invited to come and read for the role of Beth, and she read the scene where they talk about losing a child and feeling numb and feeling no emotion. She did it twice, but the first time she read it, you sit there and you see Beth, and there was no question, was there? That was Beth, and that happened quite a lot.
He did know, didn't he? I loved him. Of course he did. He was a beautiful boy, Beth. You don't deserve this. I just feel like very far away from myself.
Andrew Buchan, when he taped for Mark Latimer, he did the scene where he sees Danny's body for the first time, and he did a fantastic job, and he nailed it completely. And we showed it to Jane and Chris and Richard and James and everyone, and immediately it's like ping, 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 ping. Yes, he's the one, he's the one, he's the one.
Andy Buchan is one of the funniest people you'll ever meet, and he does not play funny people, ever. Turn over on him, and then full grief can just appear. You go like, how have you done that?
So we pretty much, I think, had all of our first choices, and seeing the actors so excited and then seeing them bring that onto the set and into the scenes was amazing. And I think there was one moment in particular where There's a shot in episode 1, this long tracking shot that follows Mark down the high street, where you meet really all the major players. And when we did that, when we cracked it, there was that moment, it's, oh, that's great, that's really good. That felt really special to see that come to life.
I think what makes Broadchurch special is the relationship between Hardy and Miller.
The initial dynamic of their relationship is quite prickly and quite spiky.
Don't look at me like that.
And that's because at first, Hardy assumes she's without the sort of big city smarts that he has. But I think gradually, and again, he would never admit this, he learns from her just as she learns from him, and they develop, they're really each other's best friend.
I think you're wrong, by the way. You're wrong, you know, what you said to Lee in there. We're not all alone.
Oh, you're right, Mama.
David is one of the nicest humans you could ever meet. And if we ever have a scene when he's not there, I don't quite know what to do with myself.
Luckily, Olivia's all right, so it's okay, we get on.
They're really good actors, and they have a great chemistry as friends and as, like, the two characters. I think that's why it worked, because, like, this is, you know, it's child murder season 1. It's a dark storyline. When I watched it, I was like, oh, brilliant. There is, like, quite a lot of, like, lightness with them two.
Oh, you're in a suit?
Not bad.
No, I just didn't expect it. We didn't get pushed up.
Not design.
Olivia and David made it their own and brought so much to it. It's really, really difficult to imagine who else could be those characters now.
The visual landscape is everything in Broadchurch. It's all about where we are.
There is no other cliff like it. It's that colour, the light in the air is different from anywhere else.
Chris's mission to all of us was, let's see the beauty in this incredible town. And just because it's a murder story doesn't mean it can't be beautiful and extraordinary.
We always seem to have beautiful weather. It always seems to be a very special place to come to.
We paid a lot of attention to the interstitials, if you like, so the shots of the landscape that kind of go between the scenes, that bookend the scenes. And so like a shot where you have the beautiful shimmering ocean and then it pulls focus to the barbed wire, that just again juxtaposes this beauty with the kind of sense that there's something amiss and there's something not quite right. So that kind of relationship between beauty and horror is something that we played with.
I think the idea of setting a show in a small, ordinary working town is very true to the heart of the idea that Chris started out with about telling a story of a community. It would be a very different show if you set it in an urban environment. It wouldn't be the same thing at all.
The scenes that I'm most proud of when I look back at Broadchurch, especially series 1, are the scenes where we captured the emotional realism, if you like, of what it's like to lose a child. I think we all felt a genuine responsibility to real people and real families who may have been through this terrible ordeal, to be as accurate and to be as raw and real as possible.
I promise. We will find the person responsible.
Oh my God.
You have my word.
Very few people knew who had killed Danny, but there was a figure given out in the press at the time, which I think was something like 4 or 5 people, and that wasn't far off.
In the first series, we didn't really know how much of a big question it would be who killed Danny Latimer. And as we started to evolve it, we realised that we really needed to try and keep the secret.
Everyone seemed to be talking about it.
I mean, nobody was expecting that.
Wessex Police tonight announced they have made an arrest in the murder of 11-year-old Danny Latimer.
The landscape of British television back then was very different. So Broadchurch, being one story played out over 8 episodes, was seen as a bit of a risk. It was in the time before catch-up, so the fear was if people had missed episode 1 or 2, then they wouldn't tune in for episode 3, and therefore the audience would start to drop off.
I really credit Laura Mackie and Sally Haynes and Peter Fincham at ITV taking a massive risk Monday night, 9 o'clock for 8 weeks. You could feel that it had ambition. It had ambition visually, it had ambition emotionally. We kept trying to take the boldest decision we could. That was always how we talked about it, that it was a risky project. And ITV didn't greenlight it for ratings, they greenlit it to take a creative risk. New, brilliant people kept coming on board and bringing the height of their talents, and that was a really beautiful thing to observe, which sounds like we knew in hindsight what would happen, but we didn't. We were just trying to do the best work we could.
When we got the call of the ratings and suddenly it was all over the papers and there was this response to it, was just phenomenal. You never, ever expect that.
Part of the thing we talked about with Broadchurch at the beginning was it had to look more beautiful than anything and it had to sound better than anything.
Chris Chibnall had a very clear idea of the sort of music he wanted to use, and he put about 3 names forward of composers we should talk to. One of whom was a guy called Oliver Arnolds from Iceland.
But I was listening to his music when I was writing it and thinking, well, if I could have anyone in the world, I'd have this guy in Iceland, you know, who not many people have heard of.
We thought, is this a good idea to go for somebody who hasn't done much score before and he lives in Iceland and he's 26? Could be difficult, could be risky, but his music has such heart and soul, and I think that's what we all responded to.
It was the final piece of the jigsaw to create this very different and beautiful kind of thing.
I was so chuffed when Ollie won his BAFTA award for music for Broadchurch 1. I thought it was absolutely deserved, and I'm so pleased that he stuck through for all 3 series. He gave a real signature and a feel to the whole show. One of the difficulties with Series 2 was the fact that a lot of people wanted it just to be a 1-series story. Chris always said very early on in the process of Series 1 that he had other stories.
I think the idea was what you never get to do in a television drama is follow the consequences of a crime right through to the emotional consequences for the family and the legal consequences. So he really wanted to do the legal story and follow that case right through to trial.
To barristers, we put them on the beach in episode 1 of Series 2. It's like the gods have descended to judge the mere mortals, and we needed actors that really express that.
Sure you're up to it?
I'm certain.
See you soon then.
Charlotte Rampling was an extraordinary coup, I think, for us and for the channel and for British television drama, and the same with Marianne Jean-Baptiste. They were our premium choices that we never thought we'd get.
Why would I ever want to work with you again?
Because I bring prestige, which matters. Don't protest.
In Series 2, obviously, one of the big story points is the fact that Matthew Gravel's character is guilty of having killed Danny at the end of Series 1. We shot at Longcross Studios. We had complete control over that. And so with Matthew's stuff in the courtroom, we could keep that entirely secret. Obviously, there are a handful of scenes where you see Matthew out in the wide open. And what we would do is we would drive him to and from location in a wig and sunglasses. It sounds like a bonkers thing to do, but it did mean that whenever anyone turned around to a car that arrived on location, they knew it was Broadchurch, the person getting out of the back of the car didn't look like Matthew Gravel.
New technology in Series 3. There are some shots we can do in Series 3 that we couldn't do in Series 1. So the opening and the closing shots of the whole series are done with drones, which just enable us to move at a different level and a height and to take in vistas in a different way. What's been exciting is to keep reinventing the show narratively, emotionally, format-wise, visually, musically, everything. It's an evolving show, it's not a fixed format.
I think the story that we tell in Series 3 is quite possibly the most important story we've ever told with Broadchurch.
Series 3 picks up 3 years after Series 2 left off and follows the investigation of a serious sexual assault in Broadchurch.
Hi, Trish, is it? My name's Ellie. I'm a detective with Wessex Police. You called about an attack? A sexual attack?
I think the world has changed since Series 1, and I think what you see is more reporting of sexual attacks. It's much more current in the news, and it felt to me like the moment to chronicle that, and the Broadchurch has hopefully sometimes taken the temperature of what it's like to live in Britain at this moment.
Wessex police say a 49-year-old woman was the victim of a serious sexual assault in the Acthampton area on Saturday night. They're asking for anyone with any information to contact them in confidence as a matter of urgency.
Chris and I worked really, really closely with a lot of Dorset-based organisations who have been fabulous, like Dorset Rape Crisis and the SARC, the Sexual Assault Referral Centre in Dorset, who have been really, really generous and giving not just of their time, but also of their expertise and their stories.
Everybody we talked to was very keen for us to tell this story in Broadchurch and on ITV and in a mainstream form and with Hardy and Ellie, it feels. So it felt like a chance to tell a story that perhaps hadn't been told in this way before.
Trish. Hello, my name's Anna. I'm a crisis worker here at the SARC. This is a dedicated sexual assault referral centre. I'm going to be with you all the time you're here to make sure you understand everything that's happening. If you're feeling unsafe or uncomfortable in any way, we will stop. Everyone will be led by you.
When I first had a read of the script for Series 3, the emotional elements of it make you realise actually that you have little understanding of what it is a victim has to go through. But what Chris does brilliantly and sensitively is he takes us through stage by stage in a very considered, a very thoughtful, not in a rushed way, so we have a really thorough insight into what that victim may be feeling.
The big difference about that story from the other series is that your victim is still alive. And in a murder case, of course, they're not. And so you're dealing with somebody who's going through trauma, effectively, and you're having to deal with that at the same time as doing a difficult investigation.
Any viewer of Broadchurch 3 is going to care what happened to Trish, and that's Julia Hesmond Hall. She doesn't bring any baggage with her. All she brings is talent and sympathy, empathy.
Why did he choose me?
I've been really impressed by the level of care that's been taken in the dealing with this issue and the research that's gone into it, because it's really important if you're making a piece of entertainment out of something that's, really, really hard thing that literally millions of people, particularly women and children, are going through every day. You have to get it right.
There are people who will look after you, help you and guide you. You will survive this.
What I think we'd love the viewers to take away is a sense of hope that together, with the support that's out there, it is possible to find your way through horrendous acts such as sexual assault.
One of the lovely things about Broadchurch is there's people now I'll know for the rest of my life, and it's always nice to leave a job with some proper friends.
To be part of all three series is lovely. We never knew it'd be quite as liked by people as it is, which is always nice. It's been a privilege, really.
The show is very warm and hopeful, and I think we will leave all three series, and at the end of the trilogy, absolutely hopeful that the human spirit and this community can come together and will overcome the darkness.
Life in Broadchurch definitely goes on after we move away, and it's why I wanted to, very deliberately, way before I started writing the third series, I knew the last words needed to be Hardy and Ellie saying to each other, "See you tomorrow," because it's about, okay, they're going to carry on, and now we're leaving them. And that shot is designed to exactly say that. It's we're leaving them behind, we're going off, we're going into the horizon and the future, and now we've left Broadchurch.